As we stated previously, the most commonly used compressors are the centrifugal type. Centrifugal compressors are comparatively light, able to run at high speed, will handle large quantities of air, and are both robust and reliable. A centrifugal compressor consists of two components: the impeller, which is rotated and accelerates the air, and the diffuser, which collects and directs the air into the inlet manifold. Air is drawn into the eye of the rotating impeller, which incorporates a number of radially disposed divergent vanes. Initially, by converting the mechanical energy which has been imparted to it by the impeller into kinetic energy, the air is accelerated radially outwards between the vanes. And, as the cross-section of its path through the vanes increases, it decelerates, and some of the kinetic energy gained is converted into pressure energy. The proportion of pressure gained in the impeller depends on the impeller's diameter. The larger the diameter, the greater the pressure gain. Its speed of rotation. The faster the impeller rotates, the greater the pressure gain. And the shape of the vanes. The air leaves the impeller with considerable tangential and radial velocity and passes into the diffuser. The diffuser can either be in the form of a divergent passage, as is shown here, or in larger units it may take the form of a series of vanes set within the volute casing, which simultaneously decrease the velocity and increase the pressure of the passing air. We learnt in the introductory lesson that the action of compressing the air increases its temperature, and thus reduces some of the increase in density which would otherwise result from the increased pressure. This loss of density may be partially recovered, either by passing the air through a heat exchanger, sometimes called an intercooler, or by spraying the fuel from the carburetor into the eye of the impeller, so that vaporization will reduce the air temperature. At any given speed of rotation, a centrifugal compressor increases the pressure of air which passes through the impeller in a definite ratio. Physical constraints limit the speed of rotation and size of an impeller, and so limit the pressure rise, or pressure ratio, which can be gained from it. Consequently, the power output and the maximum operating altitude of the engine to which it is fitted are also limited. Pressure ratios between 1.5 to 1 to 4 to 1 are generally obtainable from a centrifugal compressor incorporating a single impeller. This is known as a single-stage supercharger. If any further compression was needed, it would require that 2 or 3 impellers be installed in series, in what is known as 2-stage or 3-stage superchargers, respectively. Most engines which are fitted with a supercharger will also be fitted with a variable pitch propeller. This will be controlled by a constant speed unit. The RPM of the engine is therefore controlled by the propeller pitch lever. To accurately set the power and also prevent the engine from being overboosted, the pilot must have some indication of the amount of pressure he is allowing into the engine. This pressure is known as the intake or induction manifold pressure, and is indicated to the pilot on either a boost pressure gauge or a manifold absolute pressure gauge. In many older engines, particularly British supercharged engines, the pressure in the induction manifold, relative to sea level standard pressure, is called boost pressure. The boost pressure gauge is calibrated in pounds per square inch above or below standard sea level atmospheric pressure, which is indicated on the dial by the 0 position. Thus, if the boost gauge is indicating -3 pounds per square inch of boost, the absolute pressure in the induction manifold system would be 14.7 psi minus 3 psi, which is equal to 11.7 psi. Similarly, if there is +4 psi boost indicated, then the absolute pressure in the induction manifold system would be 18.7 psi. Current practice is to use the American method of measuring induction system pressure, known as manifold absolute pressure, or MAP. The manifold absolute pressure gauge indicates the absolute pressure in inches of mercury. When the atmospheric pressure is 14.7 pounds per square inch, it will support a column of mercury 29.92 inches high. Therefore, a boost pressure of 0 psi is the equivalent of an induction manifold pressure of 29.92 inches of mercury. A comparison of the units of manifold absolute pressure and boost pressure will show that 2 inches of mercury is approximately equal to 1 pound of boost. Externally driven superchargers are powered by the energy of the engine exhaust gases and are generally known as turbo superchargers or turbochargers. This simplified diagram shows a turbocharger consisting of a turbine wheel and an impeller fitted on a common rotor shaft. The bearings of the shaft are lubricated by oil from the engine. The turbine is driven by the exhaust system, and the compressor is connected to the induction manifold system. The turbocharger need not necessarily be an integral part of the engine. It can be mounted either on the engine or on the fireproof bulkhead, and situated remote from combustible fluid lines in the engine bay. Exhaust gases pass through nozzles and are guided onto vanes on the turbine wheel, causing it to rotate. The gases then pass between the vanes and are exhausted overboard. As more exhaust is passed over the turbine, it will accelerate, therefore driving the impeller faster. Thus, the pressure ratio of the compressor and its output increases as the turbine speed increases. This diagram shows a comparison of the power curves of a normally aspirated engine and a turbocharged engine. Notice that the power output of both types of system falls off as the aircraft climbs, but that the normally aspirated engine output falls off more rapidly. Note also that after critical altitude has been exceeded, critical altitude being the altitude above which the selected manifold pressure can no longer be maintained, the power output of the turbocharged engine drops off at the same rate as that of the normally aspirated engine. For any particular power output, the turbocharger must deliver a constant mass of air to the engine in a given time, and since the density of air decreases with altitude, the impeller rotates faster as the aircraft climbs to compensate for the reduction in density, and so maintains the selected manifold pressure. Some form of control over compressor output must be provided, and this is done by varying the quantity of exhaust gas passing to the turbine to vary its speed and that of the compressor. The simplest form of turbine control is that which has the turbine bypassed by a pipe which contains a fixed orifice. This ensures that a proportion of the exhaust gases will always drive the turbine, and the manifold pressure is controlled directly by the throttle valve. With a fixed orifice system, it must be borne in mind that as the throttle is opened to gain more manifold pressure, the increased exhaust gases which are produced as a result will cause the turbine speed to increase in response. This will trigger a further increase in charge weight, which will generate a further increase of exhaust system pressure. With this type of simple system, this chain reaction, which can be brought about by rapid movement of the throttle, may induce the occurrence of overboosting. An alternative to the simple fixed orifice system has the turbine bypass fitted with a valve known as a wastegate. The wastegate regulates the amount of exhaust gas which passes through the turbine and thus controls its speed. When the wastegate is fully open, almost all of the exhaust gases pass directly to atmosphere.